Hey friends, welcome to episode 15 of our science fiction book read-along. I know it's been quite a minute, but things got a little hectic in June, so I am going to go ahead and record this, and then the next episode, which are chapters 42, and then 46, which ends the book. This will be chapter 42, episode 15. And with no further ado, let's get started. Destiny. After Cylindra's speech, people started to look for the Moose report, which didn't actually exist until Laurent Messenger responded by grouping all the cat stories under one header that was tagged with Moose report memes. Cylindra's attempt to diminish Moose's work had backfired in an entirely predictable way, and the cat was receiving more leaks and tips than ever. It had been a week since Cylindra announced her plans, and with them the expulsion of more people from their homes. The flying train fleet was helping the new refugees by diverting more trains to Scrubjay's regular Eel Line route. They hadn't realized how much they missed seeing other trains in person. Plus, the temporary arrangement gave Scrubjay a chance to race against Peach sometimes, their friend's fuzzy pink-orange carapace turning a dusky purple in the starlight. Instead of meeting in Sunbuilders, the trains texted back and forth in person, comparing what they saw on the ground and updating the ERT data bubble. Despite housing offers from several sympathetic fans of Laurent, Moose had stayed on board. At some moment that was impossible to identify, the cat had stopped being an amusing pal and become a close friend, maybe more than that. As Scrubjay headed south, Moose lay on their back to edit a story. The train carefully angled their bodies so the sun always fell on the cat's soft brown belly fur through the windows. Eventually, they landed lightly next to the ferry dock at Estuary Station on the bottom tip of Masqua. It was the last stop, the place where Moose had first introduced themselves to the train a month ago. Riders poured out the doors. The day was warm, and across the strait between continents, Scrubjay could see Tustin's brightly colored urban warrens clinging to Tooth's mountainous coastline. I just got an amazing message from somebody with inside information about Emerald, Moose sent. Remember how Cylindra talked about something called Western Destiny in her propaganda video last week? Moose padded back and forth on the floor, lost in thought. The train could feel every step as soft, transient pressure between the shreds of trash and bandages stuck to the floor from weeks of rescue flights. The cat paused. My sources sent me a few slides from an internal presentation that Cylindra delivered last year. It sounds like Emerald's sapiens-only development is about to get a lot bigger. Check out these slides. The cat sent Scrubjay a blob of data. Scrubjay started cleaning the back car as they pored over slides. They were 3D mock-ups of new cities connected by ground-based transit network and a waterslide park that hovered half a kilometer over the ocean. Where are these things supposed to go? They asked. Emerald has used up all its lands that are zoned for urban ecosystems. Moose pointed Scrubjay to a slide that showed Masqua in satellite view. A bright green strip stretched along its entire width, joining the Emerald coast with the western seaboard. Golden text floated below the map. This is our new Western Destiny experience. Land purchases will allow the Emerald cities to stretch across the entire continent so that customers can journey from the eastern cities to the west coast without ever leaving Emerald properties. The tipster had also attached contracts that outlined Emerald's current real estate deals on Sasky. It seemed that Emerald had been quietly buying up more land, including the Central Vertebrate Mountains and several West Coast cities that were previously owned by independent companies and boutique investment firms. The final slide was terrifying. In the spot on the map where Spider should be was a blue star labeled Drake Caldera and Fun Zone. Scrubjay flipped the image around in their mind, trying to figure out whether they had read it right. Compost and pus, they're trying to turn Spider City into a resort? Moose rolled over and stood up, tail fluffed to twice its normal size. That is pure untreated sewage, they sent. Scrubjay switched to private text, even though nobody was around. Do you think there really is some way that Emerald could take over Spider? Moose hissed, burying the fangs. Look through some of their supporting materials. It seems like Emerald has a legal theory that the Eel River Treaty isn't binding now that Verdance no longer owns the planet. Forking into their beaver cat body, Scrubjay walked down their own spine into the front car, sending all the while. Cylindra must be planning something, some way to take over the city. Looks like she's building a legal case for it. Moose rubbed a cheek against the remote's shoulder. Scrubjay could model dozens of ways that a tiny government could be swallowed by a rich interstellar corporation, and yet some of those models were lit by hope. There was still time for Spider City to fight back. Plus, they had an ally on the inside at Emerald, the anonymous tipster who sent them this data blob. And they had the ERT. The train sent an urgent message to their parent Sulfur with a slide deck attached. Sulfur would get it to the council and start figuring out what to do next. "Let's take a walk," the remote vocalized as the train opened its front doors. The two quadrupeds stepped out into the afternoon. The ragged collection of shacks next to Estuary Station had grown over the past few weeks. Now it was a small village, its tidy homes arranged in a circle around garden plots furred with the first tendrils of squash, beans, and marshmallow. Two hominins and the mountable drone were growing a roomy domo and spraying the dirt walkways with a layer of biodegradable foam. A sign planted next to the domo read, "Welcome to Rivertongue. No one turned away." Emerald refugees were claiming land where they could get it. Turning their attention back to Moose, the train began to mull over what they knew so far. So she thinks she can buy Spider City because the treaty is no longer valid. What do your contacts at the League think about the treaty? Will she get away with it? The cat put a tentative paw on the fresh foam, found it solid, and led Scrubjay toward the garden. It's still being debated. Verdance covered up the treaty after firing Ronnie, but the company considered it legit enough to honor it, so that's a point in its favor. The fact that Verdance and Spider have kept the treaty for more than 1,500 years can be taken as a sign of legitimacy. But Emerald can argue that Spider made the treaty with Verdance, an entity that is no longer in control of the region, which means the treaty might have been valid once, but isn't relevant now. They paused at a planter full of worms, diving in and out of the soil, and sent them a greeting. The worms continued to aerate the dirt as Scrubjay and Moose texted privately. Scrubjay sat back on their haunches, their chrome beaver tails splayed in the grass. What happens if Cylinder actually goes to court to challenge the treaty? That's what I've been trying to figure out, Moose sent, as they watched the worms idly. The problem is that Verdance stopped claiming ownership of Spider in their tax filings. I'm not exactly sure when, but definitely more than 400 years ago. So nobody has been claiming official ownership for a while. Kind of like the land right here. The cat flicked an ear, indicating the village of Rivertongue, whose garden they were enjoying thanks to the labor of Emerald refugees. A judge could decide that means the people of Spider are squatting on private land, whose ownership will have to be decided in court. Scrubjay tilted their head. That doesn't sound so bad. We could win in court. Moose sighed. But after decades or a century, maybe, but everyone in Spider would be kicked out while lawyers yell at each other. Scrubjay focused for a few seconds on the sound of people around their primary body. There were crowds waiting to board the ferry to Tooth and the workers building the dubiously legal village of Rivertongue. Everything seemed so normal, and yet the world was being eaten by forces they barely understood. There has to be something we can do. I know Spider City is small and Emerald is huge, but we have the attention of the League now. We could do something sneaky and clever, like when Waskijak tamed the dragons during the farm revolutions. Moose gave Scrubjay a long and skeptical stare, then chittered a laugh. You just can't let go of those myths, can you, friend? Samel would be sad that their game taught you nothing. Not true. It taught me that we can play a long game, and it's not a game of firepower, it's politics. The cat extended their claws into the soft foam sidewalk, drew them back, and then extended them again. So here's the thing. Legally, Saskia is classified as a private planet because its entire surface area is owned by private entities. That's what exempts it from regulation by the League. But there are members of the League Property Council who tell me Spider meets the legal definition of a public city. After all, it has been self-governing for 1,600 years. If we add a few more precedents for public property on Saskia, that would undermine its status as a private planet. The train was getting more excited. So we just need to get more evidence that Saskia is a public planet? What about this village? Scrubjay gestured at the ripening domo nearby. And the flying train fleet. We're a public entity. There's the boring fleet, too, and the ERT. Aren't those all technically public? Moose stood up and started pacing back and forth toward the Estuary Station platform, and Scrubjay trotted behind. It's possible, yes. If we could convince League representatives that those were significant public holdings, Saskia would be declared public. But that would require even more legal debate. I mean, most off-worlders have never heard of a worker-owned co-op of vehicles. Scrubjay was devoting so many processes to this conversation that they stopped cleaning the rear car. A thick slurry of pleasant-smelling enzymes ran down the insides of their windows and dribbled into puddles on the floor. But if we did convince them, Saskia could join the league. Emerald would get sanctioned because they're violating all kinds of environmental and rights laws, and Spider could retain its sovereignty. We have to try. The beaver cat remote climbed back on the train platform, and Scrubjay stood next to the rainbowing metal of their primary body's carapace, basking in a brief moment of self-admiration. Moose looked over at their friend, sadness in their slumped posture. I wish it was that simple. Right now, Spider City is our only half-decent example of public property. The ERT is another good idea, but I'm not sure it's enough. We need to do something else, something much bigger and completely unambiguous. Do you think our tipster could help? The train asked. It has to be somebody pretty high up at Emerald to get that presentation. Maybe Cylindra made a mistake somewhere. The two friends stopped sending as they pondered. Moose looked at Scrubjay's sunny windows, deep in thought, and Scrubjay went back to washing the back car. Moose made a loud chirping noise of surprise. My colleague at Messenger analyzed the slide presentation for hidden identifiers, and she found one. These documents actually don't come from Emerald. They're watermarked with a Verdant's cryptographic signature. Our leaker was inside Verdant's and must have gotten these from a presentation that Emerald shared. They also didn't make any effort to hide the fact that they were sending the data from L'Orange. Scrubjay made a noise. So it's somebody who sent this from L'Orange who has access to documents Emerald sent to Verdant's. And then it hit them. It was just a hunch based on something that Misha once told Scrubjay about his old boss, but it felt right, like when they picked a route that saved an hour by avoiding traffic and weather. A leaker who had gotten internal documents from Emerald by way of Verdant's, who was sending from L'Orange? Could this be Ronnie? The disgraced ex-VP of Verdant's hated Cylindra, but Misha had always said Ronnie was genuinely proud of Saskia, albeit in a broken, toxic way. After all, this planet was Ronnie's greatest accomplishment. She designed everything on its surface and had even won some kind of terraforming award for it. She'd set up an ERT campus here and made Tooth into a conservation land trust, rare acts of environmental stewardship on a private planet. Some part of her cared for Saskia. It stood to reason that she might find her way back here and seek revenge against Cylindra, especially after her career had gone to shit. They sent to Moose excitedly. I know Verdant's fired Ronnie after they found out about the treaty. Is she still alive? Maybe she sent it. She'd certainly know people who had access to it. Do you think she would do that? The cat looked thoughtful. She might. She hates Cylindra, and this could be a chance to strike back at her. Scrubjay opened the doors to their now-dried back car, and Moose curled into a tight ball, lost in data searches. The train folded away the remote while looking for any evidence of Ronnie on Saskia. Of course, she wouldn't use the name Ronnie, and she would be in a new Homo sapiens body. Her identifier wouldn't change, though. And with that, we're going to end our reading of Chapter 42. There's a few more pages left, so please keep going. As always, leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section to the video, and I will follow up this post with one with Chapter 46 to end us out. All right, thanks.